Hello everyone. I am back at last, as promised, with a video in which I will analyze and comment on the Burke Ramsey interview, which was conducted by Dr. Phil. There are a lot of things I want to point out and or analyze, and I am happy that you all have continued to support me through these very unfair and unforgiving times. I am coronavirus free, and I have been since the start of all this nonsense, and my hope is that all of you watching can also say the same for yourselves and your family, God willing. I have had to use my inner soldier and my inner agility this entire year, and I am now at a better point in my life than I ever have been because of that. I am someone who has the ability to work well under pressure, and I believe that pressure can bend you into a better person sometimes, and that there's always a brighter light at the end of the dark, hellish tunnel. So, without further ado, here we are with my analyzation and comments on the Dr. Phil interview conducted with Burke Ramsey. Everyone, so before we begin, I wanted to let you guys know that I couldn't find the full Dr. Phil interview with Burke Ramsey on YouTube or any other platform. Maybe you have to have that specific channel that Dr. Phil plays on, and you have to just video record the entire interview because I couldn't find it on the internet. We are going to be analyzing and responding to the clips here that we can respond to.
Do you feel like Jonbenet's watching over you now?
Yeah, and my mom and my grandma.
Do you think your mom and Jonbenet are together again?
Yeah. Sometimes I would talk to her and just be like,
What would you
hey,
say?
just.
When you talk to her, what would you say?
Oh, just like if there's some important thing I was doing, be like, hey, thanks for looking out for me, or hope you're looking out for me, or hope you're having fun up there because I'm taking some test, or like I wish I was up there right now.
Okay. So after Dr. Phil asked the question, do you feel that your sister Jonbenet is watching out for you? Is she looking down at you from heaven and watching out for you? We saw Burke reply in the affirmative. Then after Burke said yeah, he sort of brings his lips together in a half smile for a second, and that is a sad smile. It represents sadness, it represents regret that not only his sister Jonbenet is no longer alive on earth, but all of the women essentially that were important in his life are now deceased. His mother, his grandma, his sister. That was a sad smile that we saw, right? And he also looked down when he smiled, so it's a sadness. He also raises his eyebrows after he said, yeah, my mom and my grandma, Jonbenet's watching after my mom and my grandma. He raised his eyebrows after when he said that. And the raising of the eyebrows in this particular instance represents a matter of fact sort of facial expression. It's as if somebody's asking you a question and there's more to your answer than just yes. You have to also add something else into your answer, and you go, oh, yes, but as a matter of fact, she's also watching out for my grandmother and my mother. So that's where we see that raising of the eyebrows, okay? Um, when he says sometimes I will talk to her and be like, and he's referring to Jonbenet. He's saying that sometimes he privately talks to her, and then he starts to tell us what he talks to her about. But he stops himself and he hesitates, and he needs more prompting by Dr. Phil to finish his statement and to finish telling us what he talks to Jonbenet about. He hesitates because he's second guessing whether he should be letting the entire world know that personal and private information. That's personal and private information, what he talks about with his sister. So he's pausing to think to himself, should I let the entire world know this? The entire world's watching right now. And I also do want to comment on his awkward and nervous smile. I know a lot of professionals and a lot of body language analysts have looked at his smile and called it an awkward, nervous smile. And I would even add to that. So also what I would add to that is that He also thinks it's very strange and weird and awkward to even be doing an interview. He thinks that everyone in the world who's interested in this murder case of his sister and finding out what happened and his family and interested in him, he thinks we're all weird and strange. It's not him that's awkward, it's us, right? Because that's his sister, that's his family. It's not our family. We don't we were not there and we didn't live with them and live as their family members to even question anything or to be interested in finding out anything or to be acting like weird detectives, right? So it's weird for him that we are all interested in this, in the murder of his sister. That's that smile that you see. It's not only awkward, it's that.
He comes in your room with a flashlight looking around. So your mother's been in there yelling, "Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, where's my baby?" And you never get up and say, "What is going on here?"
I guess I kind of like to avoid conflict, or I don't know. I guess I just felt safer there.
Were you curious?
I'm not the worry type. I'm not the. I guess part of me doesn't want to know what's going on.
And you, of course, know that critics would say you weren't curious because you already knew. He didn't have to get up and go check because he knew exactly what had happened.
Okay, so um, now when Dr. Phil asked him, he says there are people in your room with flashlights and all type of stuff going on, and you don't get up and you don't ask what's going on or you're not worried. He kind of purses his lips together and squinches his lips together, and he just kind of rolls his eyes around because um, in his head he in his head and in his personality, he is just thinking, you know what, I was 9 years old. And I'm not sure what the best reaction is, or how you want me to react, or how the world thinks I should have reacted. I'm not even sure of the person that I really am, even till this day in my adult age. I'm a little bit reserved. I don't want to go and get into anybody's business or cause any more problems if something may be going on. So that was just my reaction to the whole situation, is what is the body language that I saw when Dr. Phil asked this question. Okay. And then when Dr. Phil says, well, people are saying that you didn't get up because you already knew what was going on. So after Dr. Phil asks that question, I want you guys to go to rewind the video and look at his posture and his body and his face after Dr. Phil asks that question. I'm going to let you guys know a secret right now. Dr. Phil asks him, people say that you know what was going on and that's why you didn't get out of the bed. I'm just going to let you guys know right now. You probably haven't heard this from anyone else, but I am here to tell you that that Burke Ramsey has a secret, and his secret is that he heard something that night. Like I said, rewind back to when Dr. Phil asks him and says, "People say that you didn't get up because you already knew what happened." Look immediately at his body and his face after Dr. Phil asks that. Rewind it. I'm going to let you guys know that Burke has a secret, and his secret is that he heard something that night. Whether it was a door, whether it was somebody walking in the house, whether it was Jonbenet screaming, he heard something. Okay, he heard the intruder in some type of way, or he heard a struggle with his sister or something. And he has not let that be known all the way many years up until this day that you and I are speaking. He has that as a secret. I can tell that that is his secret. I am somebody who has kept a secret before, and I know what it looks like and how it manifests through your body when you're keeping a secret, and that is his secret. He heard something that night. He has regret that he heard something and that he didn't wake up or that he didn't do something about it. But it's also a 50-50. He's got regret because he heard something and he didn't wake up, but he also understands that if he would have woken up, he could have been dead as well. And he's not going to tell us that. He's not going to tell us that he heard something that night. That will probably never, you will never hear that escape his mouth in our lifetime.
What do you think happened to your sister? What happened to my sister? You killed? How do you think that happened? I think, well, I asked my dad, where did they find her body? And my dad said I found it in the basement. And so I think that someone took her very quietly and They put it down in the basement. You took a knife out. Something like that.
You think that's how she died?
Or maybe a hammer in her head, maybe.
What do you think you're saying there?
Well, I mean, she's asked me what happened to my sister. Like, well, she was killed, and she keeps kind of going deeper. She's like, well, like, what do you think happened? And I'm like, you know what happened? She was killed. And she asked me what I would think, and so I guess theorizing what had happened, and I think I felt a little awkward talking about it, and I think it was just something that I thought everyone knew. And so it's like, why are you asking me about this again?
Right.
Okay, so as a 9-year-old child, Burke knew that it was weird and awkward for the adults around him to question him about what happened to his sister. Because as a child, 9 years old, 5 years old, whatever, you believe that the adults in the world have the answers to everything. Why is it that you're asking me as a child when all of you adults are the ones that have answers to the world, right? I thought you knew what happened to my sister. She was taken down, somebody hit her over the head, is what my father explained to me, and this is how she died, right? And then when he says to the therapist as a 9-year-old, he's sitting there in the video and he says, um, I asked my father where they found her body. It's because she was missing, right? So Patsy and John wake up in the morning and their daughter's missing. So therefore, in a 9-year-old's mind, he's going to ask that question, where did you find her when she was finally found? Oh, we found her in the basement. But because he is 9 years old and he looks at the adults in the world as having the answers and him not having the answers to the world as a child, it's weird that you are questioning me when you already know what happened. We're very clear on what happened, and why are you still questioning me like I have some better answer for you and I don't? Right? So that's the awkward smile that we continue to see with him. And that is the awkward behavior of him taking the Guess Who game board and rubbing it against his head when he was having that interview as a child. We saw him rub the game board against his head because it's all awkward, and he's also tired of being questioned. Oh, this question again? This type of interview again? I thought all the adults in my world had the answers to things. Why am I continuously being questioned? And then he also has an awkwardness answering Dr. Phil. So we see his hands fidgeting and stuff because it's all, like I said, it's awkward and strange, and we are awkward and strange for wanting to be involved in his family's business and what happened with the killing of his sister.
Are you aware of these different theories that are out there? Theories that you killed your sister, theories that your mother killed John.
Okay, take a look at that face, everyone. So when he hears Dr. Phil say, "Are you aware of these theories that you've killed your sister? Your parents have killed your sister." Look at his face right now. That's a disgusted face. It's a disgusted reaction. It's a reaction of, so you've got so much stress in your brain and your heart from the entire world being strangers to you and questioning the validity and the truthfulness of your family. That's your family. You know them like no one else knows them. And here come a bunch of strangers all throughout the entire world pointing the finger at you being 9 years old and pointing the finger at your parents. He actually even adjusts himself in the chair when he knows the question's coming. He's very upset and disgusted that people would question this and put him in the middle, or his parents. We don't know his family. He's the one that does. So let's rewind that just for a second so you could take a look at that disgusted posture and that disgusted face that he has on.
Are you aware of these different theories that are out there? Theories that you killed your sister, theories that your mother killed Jonbenet, and theories that an intruder killed Jonbenet. Those seem to be the three camps that people talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we were suspects. I didn't know they were camps, I guess.
And these are people that post online. The shorthand is RDI, Ramsey did it, IDI, the intruder did it, or BDI, Burke did it. Do you know the theories that they set forth in saying that your mom killed Jonbenet?
I don't know the details, but I know the ransom note, they think the handwriting matched.
Have you seen it? Have you read it?
I don't think I've read the whole thing. I've definitely seen pictures of it, though.
Did the handwriting look familiar to you at all? Had you seen it ever before?
No. I feel like the listen carefully is very distinct, and I've never really seen that. I don't know. I've never really looked at it closely because I'll see it and kind of get taken aback. And
Okay, it's hurtful for him to even glance at this ransom note. He was so sheltered from this when it happened that he hates having to go back and talk about it or relive it, right? It's just not something that he wants to do. And I also want to mention, everyone who thinks that Burke Ramsey killed his sister, why would his parents immediately after finding the body and everything going on in their house that morning, why would they let Burke, who's 9 years old, go and stay with their friends, family friends? Now, don't you think that those family friends could have had him in their house and easily surrounded him, a bunch of adults or, a bunch of intimidating people surrounding him and asking him questions? See? So if he was guilty of something, why would his parents, John and Patsy, so easily let him go stay at somebody else's house? Wouldn't they be keeping them close to him because he just killed his sister on accident and they don't want him to slip anything from his mouth?
it's not something I really want to look at like a lot,
Right. Does that look like her handwriting?
Honestly, looking at that, she would always bug me about having good handwriting, and she would like make me rewrite stuff to try to get me to have good handwriting, and I think it's too sloppy.
He thinks it's really awkward that he's being shown the note. So when something hurts and something is very painful, you don't want to look at it anymore. Let's say that somebody died and it's just too much sort of for you to handle. They died all of a sudden, or maybe you had an argument with them or something before they died. And this is just a scenario, when something very sad happens or something that was completely out of your control, you don't want to have to see that piece of evidence or anything like that, because it just brings you back to this place where you're just in this stress and this sadness and you don't want to look at it. That is what we see with him just now. And when he was talking about how his mother's handwriting is really neat, and she used to get on him to make his handwriting neater and cleaner and make it look better, he sort of laughed about it because that was something that he could reminisce on in the past to what he grew up with, right? His mother teaching him that, make sure that your letters look neat and everything like that. So he really didn't want to have to look at that note, not even once. It's very awkward for him. It's very hurtful. Okay. And like I said, we are all awkward to him because we're all strangers. So therefore, we have nothing to say about his family or about that night. We weren't there. We're just strangers to him. We don't even know what his favorite color is. We don't know what his first grade teacher's name is. We don't know anything about him.
There still are people that believe that you killed your sister.
Yeah.
What do you say about that?
Look at the evidence, or the lack thereof.
Part of their rationale.
So when Dr. Phil says, well, there are still people that believe that you killed your sister, and he had that sort of a halfway grin and he looked down and he said, yep, that is, imagine what kind of facial expressions you would have if you thought something was ridiculous and you were still answering that question. And it's like, yep, there's still freaking people out there who think this. That's exactly what his face just looked like just now. Also, when he says take a look at the evidence, he's talking about the foreign DNA that was found on Jonbenet. So you mean to tell me that either me, Burke Ramsey, or somebody in the house, which was my parents, killed my sister, yet there's this foreign DNA that's on her body out of nowhere, right? So magically, some fairy dust came down from the atmosphere, and then the fairy dust just deposited some foreign DNA of a unknown male onto my sister's body from out of nowhere. That's just what happens in life, right? Take a look at the evidence, is what he's saying.
These people say you are the only one that your parents would go to the lengths that they went to cover up everything that happened. They're talking about fabricating this ransom note. They're talking about if she was strangled, then causing the head injury. All of this cover up was all done to protect you because they didn't want to lose two children. That's their theory.
I don't.
There's no blinking from Burke after Dr. Phil says, well, they were trying to cover up because they didn't want to lose two of their children. Now, when Burke hears that, there's no blinking from him, right? Because it must have been that he's heard this theory before that, oh, your parents didn't want two of their children gone and taken away from them, so they covered up for you. No blinking at all because it's not a surprise. Him hearing that's not a surprise. He's not guilty. He didn't do anything. He was 9 years old, which is why in the beginning of my video, all the pictures are of Burke being 9 years old. Stop looking at him as this grown adult man who's had an interview with Dr. Phil. Look at him as the 9-year-old that he was when this happened.
To say that because I know that's not what happened. There's been a few people that said that's not even physically possible for a 9-year-old to do that. Like you won't find any evidence because that's not what happened. I know I didn't do it.
And I know what you're talking about. I mean, they're saying
A lot of people have been there before where it's like you continuously say that you didn't do something, or you continuously try to explain how something happened and that you're not involved, yet people continuously point the finger at you, right? So we all have been there before in one way or another. And it gets to a point where you just say, you know what? I know that I didn't do anything wrong. So therefore, what else can I say and what else can I do? There's nothing that I can do. They're going to continue to have their opinion, and that's what we just heard from him is that sort of giving up of, hey, you know what? I know I didn't do anything wrong. I know that in my heart and mind I was there, no one else was, so therefore I'm going to leave it at that.
the force of the blow, the actual act of the strangulation for a child that weighed 60 pounds at the time,
Yeah.
just physically, it doesn't work.
Do 9-year-olds sometimes kill siblings? Yes, but not with a garrote, with intricate knots tied around it, in the middle of the night in their parents' home. He didn't do it.
You would never sit with this young boy and come away with the idea that he could have been involved in any aspect of what was a horrible and brutal murder of his sister.
Let's clear this up once and for all. Did you do anything to harm your sister, Jonbenet?
No.
Did you murder your sister, Jonbenet?
No.
That halfway smile, that pulled back smile that we just saw was a no, and unfortunately, no matter what I do, people will always think that I did. That was the exact face that was what he relayed from his face to me just now.
It's hard to miss the cameras and news trucks in your front yard, and we'd go to the supermarket sometimes and there'd be a tabloid, with my picture, Jonbenet's picture, plastered on the front. They would follow us around. Seeing that as a little kid is just kind of a chaotic nightmare. So I was pretty skeptical of any sort of media. It just made me a very private person. As to why I'm doing it now, it's the 20th anniversary and there's apparently still a lot of attention around it.
Dr. Phil McGraw, good.
Okay, so that is the reason why he's speaking up. Not because he wants to, but because people are constantly bothering this case and talking about his family and talking about him. So he feels forced to come out and say something, right? Even though his parents have spent so much energy and effort into shielding him and protecting him for all of this craziness. He feels like it is better at this point to come out and say something because so many people are after him and his family. Now, there was a video that I watched earlier, and I'm not going to say who it was, but the video was talking about the case and talking about how Burke was essentially jealous that he did not get a bicycle for Christmas and JonBenet did get a bicycle, and that is what drove him to have these ill feelings and to have these feelings of anger toward his sister. And the feelings of anger got so strong that he must have cracked her upside the head that night and killed her on accident, right? That's what I want to say to that person who made that video is that's your family, buddy. Your family can't afford buying a bike for two children. It has to buy one bike for one child on Christmas, and the next Christmas, the other child gets the bike. You're talking about a family who had millions upon millions of dollars. Each of these children, JonBenet and Burke, had their own individuality. They lived separate individual lives as children. They each had their own friends. So Burke had his own, friends and little boys that he hung out with. And JonBenet had her own little friends and her own little individual life. Their lives were not combined in the way that you would see someone who's middle class combine their children's lives. So, meaning that if I sit Sarah down with some crackers and I have another little kid over here, Tommy, and he's also my child, I'm sorry, Sarah, but you're going to have to share those crackers as a snack with your brother Tommy. That didn't happen in their family. They have enough money to make sure that Burke is sitting at the table as an individual with his individual crackers. JonBenet is sitting at the table with her individual crackers as a snack. This is just an example. You have to think that this is not your life as a middle class citizen. These are people with money who are rich. If they could buy a bicycle for JonBenet on Christmas, then they also bought it for Burke. And there is a part in the interview where Burke admits to him getting a bicycle that Christmas. The same Christmas where JonBenet was killed over him not getting a bicycle is the same Christmas in which Burke did get a bicycle. You're not talking about a family who's broke and can't buy things individually for each child. They're not children who shared things. They're children whose parents had a lot of money. They could each have their own separate lives, each have their own separate sports that they attended, each have their own separate extracurricular things that they did. Keep that in mind. And he has already said and told us that he received a bike that Christmas. Who are we to question whether he did or he didn't? Shut up.
Did you do anything fun for Mom? Went to Dairy Queen. Yeah. That's fun. Was your mom the kind of mom that gives lots of hugs and kisses? Yep. Both you and your sister, or just you, or just your sister? Both of us. Anybody else in your family? Are you going to talk? What about me? What about you?
This is the first time you've seen it, right?
Yeah.
When you see that, do you remember it?
Yeah. I remember the room.
Yeah.
I think I didn't know it was a psychologist.
Did you consciously not draw JonBenet?
I don't really remember what was going through my head, but she was gone, so I didn't draw her.
Okay, this part here is not very hard to explain. Let's say that you're filling out an application or you're taking a census or something and you've got paperwork to fill out, okay? Let's say that your grandma used to live with you and now she doesn't anymore, but your grandma lived with you for a long time. And the paperwork that you're filling out asks you who lives in your household. Now, since your grandmother no longer lives with you, are you going to write down on that piece of paper, my grandmother, my mom, and me, or whoever? Or are you going to exclude your grandmother because she no longer lives with you? Think about that. What are you going to put down on that piece of paper? Guess what? You're not going to write down that your grandmother lives with you because she doesn't anymore. She's dead. She has died. She's not in the family any longer, okay? So therefore, you have two types of children. You have children will still continue to live in the fantasy world of their grandmother still living with them, or their sister still being alive, and drawing that on a piece of paper as her as an angel with wings or something. And then you have a child who's more of a realist, okay, and will either subconsciously or consciously not draw their sister if their sister is no longer alive and no longer a part of their family. It's not it's not any admission of guilt not drawing his sister. It's just, hey, the reality of the situation is my family right now is my father, my mother, and me, so that's what I'm drawing. Is my sister physically here? No. Okay, so don't think any further into this other than that right there, because that's exactly what it is, right? It doesn't mean that he likes his sister being gone. It means that in all actuality and as a matter of fact, she's gone. She's not here anymore. So therefore, she's not a part of our family until we all die and go back up to heaven to see her again. Thank you for joining me on another analysis video conducted by Dr. Phil interviewing Burke Ramsey. This concludes the video. Unfortunately, because I couldn't find the entire Dr. Phil interview, the clips are very limited on YouTube and I can't find a lot. I know that Burke had a lot more to say, but it's been very difficult just trying to find the clips that I did find. There are a lot of different things that I want to say about the Ramseys and different things that I want to bring up that would point to them being innocent. And I will make a video on that in the near future. Um, Things like, the first police officer who was called to the scene could have very well checked the basement and checked the Ramseys' house if they wanted to. The Ramseys are not psychic. They did not know that calling 911 that day was going to bring an incompetent police officer to their house and a police officer who just decided not to look through the house. It could have very well been that that police officer decided to search the house and found Jonbenet's body. Now, John and Patsy are not psychic. They can't tell that that's what's going to happen. So therefore, when you guys, when some people question, why is it that John Ramsey found the body? It's because he's guilty. No, the police officer who showed up first at the crime scene could have done that and checked the house. However, he didn't. And John and Patsy are not psychic to know that when they call 911, this person's going to be incompetent and not search for the body and not find anything. Okay? You're just giving them a little bit too much credit and you're just kind of calling them out as being psychic when they're not, right? So I do want to mention these things, you guys. I am going to make another video. I am also planning to do a video on Scott Peterson. I was asked to do that a while ago, and I want to honor everyone's request here. I appreciate all of you guys, all my subscribers. I appreciate the love. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate the hate in the comments. I appreciate everything, sharing the video, subscribing. You are all so lovely. You have been lovely and you have been loyal to my channel, and it is only it is up to you guys, and you guys are the ones who decide whether you want to watch my videos or not. And I'm grateful to every single person who watches, and I read all of your comments, and I hope that you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope that you all can join me for the next video where we will be either talking about more about the Ramseys or Scott Peterson, or doing an analysis on someone else completely different. Thank you all. Have a lovely November, and I shall make a video and see you guys and talk to you all soon.